恭请大德圣听，为此法会，及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生，脱死离苦得乐。殊真无生，will the Shankar with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputo 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome back. We are now at lecture number 167. I'm going to get my slides. While I get my slides, does anyone have any questions so far? I know Melinda has a question. Anyone else? No? Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, based on feedback. Oh, which by the way, if you all have any feedback on the way the lecture is being conducted, if you have any ideas how things can be improved or changed, I'm all ears. Okay, let me know. You can WhatsApp me, or you can to the end of today's lecture, you can speak it out. I will be very, very happy to hear what you all have to say, because one of the feedback that I receive is that sometimes I may go a bit too quickly on a certain point, and I don't elaborate the point enough. But at the same time, I also have feedback that sometimes I'm too long-winded on the same point. So that I'm not quite sure how to resolve. So my suggestion is, if you think I'm going too quickly, to please let me know, and I will make sure I spend more time on a particular subject. And also the same, if I'm spending too much time and you get the idea, just let me know. The other feedback I receive is that I don't really put everyone up to speed with what happened in the previous week. So that's what I'm going to do now. I have 2 slides, which is a quick summary of what we talked about at our last at our last lecture. Excuse me. So right now we are looking at how to study and lecture the Dharma, the sutras. Why? Because that's something that Shuvu always wanted us to do, not just the monks and the nuns. Shuvu wanted the lay people to do that as well. So last week, what we looked at was Shufu saying that study and practice has to go together. Think of it like your feet, okay? Your left foot and your right foot. One foot is study, one foot is practice. If you only have study, that means you only take a step with one foot, then your feet become unequal. Like what will happen as you walk? You end up walking in a circle. So you don't really progress, whether it's a left foot or a right foot. So too much study and no practice is no good. Too much practice and no study, you don't understand what you're doing, also no good. Okay, so Shufu says study and practice has to go together. Same with blessings and wisdom. Just one moment, let me rearrange my computer window. Okay, Shufu says same thing for blessings and wisdom. Says as we investigate the sutras, we nurture our wisdom, but at the same time, we must also constantly benefit other people. And then our blessings or merit at the same time will naturally increase. And Shuvu says, when you study the Dharma, you have to be able to apply it to yourself. This is what it means when you hear me say, you make the Dharma come alive. How do you make the Dharma come alive? By reflecting it through your own experience in life. That's how it makes sense to you. Because if it doesn't make sense, it means you don't understand. It's just theory. You haven't tasted it yet. You don't know the meaning. So one of the things when we investigate the sutras is we have to ask ourselves, what has this to do with me? Number one. An excellent way of understanding the Dharma, which I have discovered, is when you are put in a position where you have to explain it to people. And that forces you not to just read, but to understand in a way that you have to explain. And the best is if you can explain it through your own words. You retain the principle, but you explain it through your own experience. Then how do you know if you're doing it well? Shifu says you have patience, you have more patience, and you have your desires, your attachments get less. And then Shifu says why study is important. He says you may study the Dharma for kalpas, but unless you understand the genuine doctrine, you won't get off the revolving wheel. That means you won't end birth and death. You just keep on going round and down. So it is, but if you understand the essential message of the Dharma, then you will know. It says, it's simply a matter of purifying my mind and will. This is why Bodhidharma always goes back and the sixth Petrarch as well. And if Shufu is always say the same thing as them. It's about transforming our unwholesome habits. All right? Which is why Shufu also says, if you're always looking at others' faults, then you haven't put an end to your own suffering, and that also means you do not understand the Dharma. If you go around always noticing what are the wrong things that people do, you're always blaming others, but you never look at yourself, that means you have a deficiency in understanding what the practice is all about. Shuva says that we should all cherish any opportunity that we have when we get to study the Dharma, because it's really, really rare. I know because I've gone through it myself, and I myself have not. For example, I have not. I've only heard Shifu speak once or twice in person, but I've never had the privilege of being face to face with Shifu and being able to listen to the Dharma from him. That's one example. And then finally, Shiva says, whether you are a left home person or lay person, you should all be eager to speak Dharma. This will give you a chance to discover the treasures in the wisdom mind of your own nature. Okay, that's what I meant just now when I say when you're put in a position where you have to explain what you understand. That's what it means. Because if you don't explain what you understand, you never know if you truly understand, number one. And you how you say, your mind is not forced to understand what you're reading from different perspectives, especially if you have to distill the principle to children. If you have to explain the Dharma to children or to newcomers, beginners, that's the best test or the best training in trying to understand the Dharma. When I was kind of forced to speak the Dharma at Berkeley Monastery, when sometimes when Rengo Hangsha wasn't around on Saturday evening, it really transformed the way I studied the sutras. And she says, why do I say that I will certify everything you say? That means you don't have to worry about Shifu saying you're wrong, or because Shifu says everything is okay. It doesn't matter whether you speak well or badly, just so long as you are not like a mute. So as long as you speak the Dharma, you make Shifu very happy. Okay. Now, what is a Dharma speaker? Now let's go to a sutra. It's called the Dhamma Kartika Sutta, and in it, this is how you can recognize who's a Dharma speaker, someone who explains the Dharma. So a monk actually asked the Buddha, it says, they speak of a Dharma speaker. How is a Dharma speaker defined? So this is just a short excerpt from the sutra. The Buddha says, if a mendicant or anyone else teaches Dharma for disillusionment, dispassion, and cessation regarding what? Regarding the form, feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness. What are these 5 things? These are known as the 5 skandhas, or the 5 aggregates. By now, I hope you all know the 5 aggregates are what we mistake to be the self. They're actually not the self. And because we mistake them to be the self, we end up with birth and death and suffering and the whole, we fall into the hells, all because of mistaking the 5 aggregates for the self. Yeah. So according to the Buddha, you are a Dharma speaker if you teach people to not get so attached, so that you get dispassion. For example, in how bodhisattvas regard their body. All right. Bodhisattvas, because of their wisdom, they see the body as something impermanent, something that's going to betray them, and something that's not reliable, something that's going to break down on them, which is the case for all of us. Okay. But to the bodhisattvas, that's their truth. They can fully, that's truly how they regard their body. Right? So it's kind of like, I always use the example of you have a car. You have to get somewhere and you have a car, but this car is a totally useless piece of junk. Okay, you're not sure. Sometimes when you brake, the car may not brake, the car may not stop. When you turn right, try to turn the steering wheel, the steering wheel may come off in your hand. So in other words, it's a death trap. If you rely on it, it might take you to your death, which is how bodhisattvas, how enlightened beings see people like us who are not enlightened. Why? Because we spend so much time caring for our body, trying to maintain our youth, our looks, our health. And at the same time, we know that our body is going to betray us one day, no matter what we do. So if you can tell people, sometimes, getting old is a part of life. You help people get not so attached to their body. They see it for what it is. Then guess what? You then qualify to be a Dharma speaker. Okay? All right. Then, now, Shufu, in the Avatamsaka Sutra, or the Flower Adornment Sutra. So, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but what we're going to do in this lecture is we're going to look at Shufu's guidelines for how to speak the Dharma. Okay? All right. So Shufu says, this is the Dharma I explained. Of course, there is a little difference when it is compared with the Dharma you explain, but not being the same is just being the same. They are alike because they are both lecturing the sutras. In lecturing, excuse me, time for a cough drop. Shiva says, in lecturing the sutra, there is not one who is right and one who is wrong, or one who is good and one who is bad. If you are able to have that much wisdom, then you will explain that much principle. There is no fixed measure to principle. Although you say something is good, yet there is always something even better. You say something is not good, yet there is always something which is worse. So I certify that whatever you say is correct. Okay, so this is Shufu. And Shufu says, let me see. Then, so, let me see, what's the principle in that previous slide? When you explain a sutra, it is kind of like holding the precepts. I know some of you have taken the Bodhisattva precepts, but not everyone can hold the Bodhisattva precept at the same level as, say, Kuan Yin Bodhisattva. And when you've held the precepts for 10 years, it is very different, provided your understanding of the precepts grow. Holding it in 10 years' time, it will be very different from holding it for those of you who have just taken the precepts a few months ago at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, right? So as your study of the precepts grow and with your experience and they go hand in hand, what's going to happen is that you apply the precepts in real life and then you get experience. And then when you study the precepts, you realize that you now understand the precepts deeper because your experience has grown. And because you understand the precepts deeper, you are able to then apply it at a deeper level as well. And then so study and practice hand in hand go deeper and deeper, which is why for some of you, if you have read certain books, certain Dharma books over and over again, you realize sometimes the same passage now seems different. The meaning is different because of your practice. So which is why as we share our thoughts on the Dharma, it's going to change. What you read today and you share today, in 10 years' time, if you practice well, that understanding might get deeper and change. So you can't say someone is wrong if their understanding is shallow, because it is only from having a shallow understanding that you can get to a deeper understanding. Okay, it's a lot better than having no understanding at all, because from no understanding, you're never going to develop anything. Okay, now, someone asked you for a question. It says, you require that the 4 assemblies take turns to either give a lecture on the sutras or repeat a past lecture. How should lay people speak so that their talks are in accordance with the Dharma? So Shifu says, use the sutra as a basis. Don't just say whatever you please. So for some of you who like to share the Dharma, sometimes if you can, try to figure out where your understanding comes from. Okay, is your understanding, I call it Kopitiam Buddhism or coffee shop Buddhism? Is it you repeat because you heard someone else say it, but you're not quite sure if it's actually from a sutra, or did Shufu teach, or did a Petra teach, or just someone else say? That's one perspective. The second perspective is you, even if you have read it from a sutra, if you go back and reread the sutra, you will discover Was your understanding right the first time, or your memory correct, or maybe you thought it was something else? So it gives you a chance to reassure yourself. Is that the right word? Reassure, maybe. Yeah, be sure. You get to be sure. Then you can feel confident in sharing it. And that's also why, if I can, I always try to share the source of what I present, so that you all can go and read it for yourself, because maybe my interpretation may not be right. Okay, or you have a better interpretation than the next lecture, please share it. Okay, all right. Now I'm not sure, is that a question in is that a question in Chinese? Does anyone have translation skills? You can maybe help me translate, because I have to log into. I've learned how to use ChatGPT to translate. It's pretty good. Okay, Alex says that it's the same from last week. Okay, all right. Okay, it's the same from last week. Then my answer is still the same. Okay, now Shifu says in our sutra, the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, Shifu says, based upon your own wisdom and understanding of the sutra, you may expound it for others, illustrating its wonderful principles and its great importance through the use of analogies or metaphors or examples. What are the best examples from yourself, from your own life? That's a very good example. Why? Because if it comes from that place, somehow or other it helps people connect with the sutra, because you're using something real to explain. Okay, now Shifu, there was a 100-day chant session at CDTB. If anyone has ever joined, during my time at CDTB, our chant sessions were 3 weeks. 3 weeks every day from, I think, 2 in the morning, you sit until 12 midnight. And you have a 2-hour break there. You can go sleep if you want to. So you sit for 1 hour, you walk for 20 minutes, sit for 1 hour, you walk for 20 minutes. And that 3-week chant session is extremely hard on the body. It can get very, very painful. And so that's only 3 weeks. So 100-day chant is what, slightly over 3 months. So it's a huge deal. It's a big deal. So anyway, I think Shufu will lecture daily. And in one of his Dharma talks, he says the cultivation of the Dharma includes worldly Dharmas, and worldly Dharmas also include the Buddha Dharma, Dharma with a capital D. Says the Buddha Dharma, I'll just refer to it as a Dharma from now on. The Dharma and worldly Dharmas are essentially one, so don't be biased towards either one.
Sure.
To learn, yes.
I,
Yes, Ron.
I would suggest, if it's possible, to say Buddha Dharma when it says Buddha Dharma, because as a beginner, we still get mixed up on regular Dharma and Buddha Dharma. So if
Okay.
if it's not too much difficulty for you, please say it for our benefit.
Okay. All right. I will say Buddha Dharma. Just the rationale behind me shortening it to Dharma is because most other translations, they always just use capital D. But when you're listening, it can be hard to distinguish. So Shufu says the Buddha Dharma and worldly Dharmas are essentially one. So don't be biased towards either one. To learn how to transcend the world, you must first learn how to enter the world. What does that mean? Shufu says the cultivation of the Buddha Dharma includes worldly Dharma, and the worldly Dharma also includes the Buddha Dharma. The Buddha Dharma and worldly Dharma are essentially one, so don't be biased towards either one. I think I might have copied and pasted twice. Anyway, Shiva said, that's why the sixth Petrarch said, the Buddha Dharma is in the world. Enlightenment is not apart from the world. To search for Bodhi apart from the world is like looking for horns of a hare. A rabbit with horns, it doesn't exist, no such thing. So this line, the Buddha Dharma is in the world, proves that if you want to transcend the world, you must first enter the world. What does entering the world mean? It means to understand all worldly phenomena. Once you understand worldly phenomena, a turn of the head makes them transcendental Dharma. All right? Now, it is impossible to gain insight into transcendental Dharma or the true wisdom, okay, without understanding worldly phenomena. Take expounding the sutras, for instance. You won't be able to expound the sutras well if you don't really understand societal issues. Your teaching will come across as too rigid and dry, so no one will want to listen to you. That means whatever you say is just based on principle, but there's no connecting to everyday people's everyday lives. And Shiva says, if you understand the worldly Dharma, your audience will find that your Dharma talk makes sense. Your words will be able to touch their hearts and fill them with the joy of Dharma. Having experienced profound joy, people will listen to you explaining the sutras. Okay, which is why I always ask if you all have any questions, because it's very helpful for a monk who doesn't lead the same lifestyle as lay people to be able to be reminded of the things that lay people go through. Because our day-to-day life is very different. I find that the things that I think about on a daily basis has very little in common with my past life. With my life before I became a monk. So sometimes your questions will help me be able to connect the principle to something that's relevant. Okay. Then, so you will help me avoid what Shufu is saying now, which is, Shufu says, if you don't understand worldly Dharma and speak only your transcendental Dharma, you might tell your audience you should cultivate ascetic practices. But since you haven't helped them truly understand the principles behind the ascetic practices, they would not listen to you even if you tried to force them. In other words, people don't understand why. You tell them to do something, but you don't explain why, you don't explain the cause and effect or the mechanism behind the practice. They say, okay, but in their hearts, they don't understand what's going on. So Shiva says, the worldly Dharma is to make everyone happy instead of angry. If you make everyone angry, nobody will accept your teaching of the Buddha Dharma. Thus, you have to understand worldly Dharma, which is why lay people can also make excellent Dharma speakers. All right? Now, Shiva says, some people say you can't lecture. Okay, now this is a different different Dharma talk. Okay, this is from the Avatamsaka Sutra. Why am I including this in today's lecture? Is because some people have a fear of speaking, or how you say, there's a phenomena that regards the sutras or the Dharma as the law, kind of like the Bible. Same perception as the Bible or the Quran, where you have to be very precise in explaining. You can't deviate from the meaning. You can't take liberties at all, because it is sacred. Whereas in the Dharma, it is different, because the sutras are there to point the way out. It's not by, say, if you understand the sutras intellectually, or if you memorize the sutras, that is the way you end birth and death. It's not that at all. The sutras are there to exhort you to practice and to show you how to practice. You still have to do the practice for the results to come. Okay, so that's why I'm sharing this Dharma talk by Shufu. So Shufu says, some people say you can't lecture sutras because if you make a mistake, you will commit offenses. So it's fear-based, right? There's another saying, to interpret the sutras incorrectly is like breaking your very bones. If you do not lecture the principles correctly, it's as dangerous as if your very bones were smashed. Moreover, okay, as if those two were not scary enough, others say by relying on the text in explaining the meaning, you wrong all the Buddhas of the 3 periods of time. Okay, all right. Does anyone have a question? Clifford, do you have a question? No? Okay, in that case, I'll mute your microphone. Okay.
Dharma Master, I have a question, if it's okay to ask.
Yes, sure, Sarah.
So at the beginning of the lecture, you explained that if we can explain the Dharma at the beginning, like let's say, but what if you don't have enough wisdom to explain as you should? Because what if you're afraid of making mistakes and explain the Dharma wrongly, especially to people that are new to Buddhism or are different faith?
Okay, so that's why we are last week's lecture, this week's lecture, and probably next week and the week after, we are exploring precisely that. Why? Because all of us have people that we care for. All of us have people that we want them to be happy, that we know that they can benefit from the Dharma. So how do, like, exactly your question, how can we develop ourselves to a point where we can make sure we understand the principles of the sutra, right? So what have we gone through today is, Shifu says, when we speak, okay, when we speak is formal, okay, Shifu says base it on a sutra. Don't just say whatever you feel like saying. So that goes in when we give advice as well. So when we give advice, we don't have to say, oh, I read in this sutra, or we don't have to present it as the Dharma of the Buddha. Okay, I'll tell you this story. Okay, I'm not sure if I told this story before. So when I was in Berkeley, there was a dentist who offered to look at the teeth of the monks at Berkeley. This dentist was based in Gilroy. No, he was based. He was based in Freedom. I think the town was called Freedom. It's a small town. I think the population there is about 80% Hispanic people. The reason I mentioned Gilroy is near Gilroy, and Gilroy is the garlic capital of California. So we would have to drive down south from San Francisco. You drive south, and you know when you pass by Gilroy on the highway. Why? Because you will definitely smell garlic. Even with your windows up, with your aircon on, the smell of garlic will just penetrate through the windows, I guess. I don't know. And all of us always know, oh, okay, we are near Gilroy. We are in Gilroy, and we are leaving Gilroy. Okay, then we come to Freedom. Freedom is a small town. And when we're there, it's the clinic is in a square. So the parking lot is in the middle, and then there's rows of shops forming a square. And while waiting for our appointment, because sometimes he would handle the other monks first. There will be sometimes 2 or 3 monks going. So on one of those days, I just went for a quick walk outside. And as I was walking, suddenly this young man with long hair came to me. He approached me. And he didn't give any indication that he recognized me as a Buddhist monk. All I know is what he came to me and he said, excuse me, can I speak to you? And I thought he was going to talk to me about Jesus, because that has happened before. And so I said, yeah, I said, of course. And then he started explaining to me, he told me where he was from. He said he's JinHe. I later found out JinHe means Navajo. I think it's the Navajo tribe. He was Native American. He explained to me how he lived with his father and how he felt very comfortable on the water. But his problem was this. His problem was his house was broken into. And he said that from his neighbors and his relatives, he knew who the person was who broke into his house. And he says everyone is pressuring him to take some form of revenge. And he says, but he doesn't want to do that because he doesn't feel in his heart, he doesn't feel like that's what he wants to do, although he knows who that person is. So he says that because he knows this person and is from the same community, every time he sees this person, that the feelings come back to him, that he feels compelled or pressured to take revenge, but he doesn't want to, but at the same time he feels that it's very unfair, and he has all these conflicting thoughts and emotions in him. So he was talking to me for pretty long. It was about maybe at least 15-20 minutes, just the two of us standing outside one of the I think it's like a Walmart, smaller version of a Walmart shop, like a supermarket. So he asked me for advice, and I wasn't sure if he knew I was a Buddhist monk. So I had to be very careful in not using Buddhist terminology to explain the principles from the Buddha's teachings. In other words, you say it in you speak Dharma without speaking Dharma. I don't know if that makes sense, you know. So I knew what he liked, which is he told me himself. He says when he goes fishing, he's able to provide for his family, and that makes him really happy. And he can trade with the fish and that he catches and all that. And so I asked him about fishing, and he said when he fishes, his mind is very peaceful. But then when he sees that person who robbed his house, the thoughts and the unwanted thoughts and emotions will come flooding back. So basically what I explained to him, or what I pointed out to him that he already knew but maybe didn't realize, I said that, that the thoughts are not him. The thoughts are just a product of the condition that he's around. So when he sees that person, it triggers certain thoughts that he doesn't like. But when he's fishing, when he's on the water, those conditions bring him peace. And in other words, the thoughts are not him. The thoughts are just a result of his environment. And before I could even finish, he suddenly became really, really happy, and he started thanking me. And that was when he put his palms together, and then he made a half bow, which surprised me, because initially when he came to me, he didn't provide any recognition that he understood who I was. This strange Asian-looking person wearing strange clothes in a small town called Freedom, where it's mostly Hispanics. So he put his palms together, he made a half bow, and then he told me, he said, I saw you, I was sitting in the car waiting for my woman, his girlfriend, who was shopping. And then he revealed to me that he said, I didn't know if I should talk to you. I wanted to, but I wasn't sure. And then he said something very strange. He said, but I asked my creator, or he said the creator. I asked the creator, meaning his God, if I should speak to you, and he said yes. So it was very strange. And then right after he explained all that to me, he did another half hour. He said he's so happy right now he could somersault right on the spot. I said, no, you don't have to do that. And suddenly this huge man with a long beard on a motorbike, like a Harley Davidson, very loud motorbike, came past us, and he stopped next to us. He looked at me, this man on a motorbike. Then he too put his palms together and did a half bow on the motorbike, and then just rode away. So that was a very surreal experience that I had. Yeah. So when we speak the Dharma, when you truly understand the Dharma, you can speak it in such a way that it conforms to the other person. You don't have to use Buddhist terminology. Why? Because you are speaking the principle to the specifics of the person. And we'll come to that. Shifu talks about that as well. So right now, Saha, we are exploring how we can make that happen. Okay, so we've gone through. Shifu says, excuse me, hold on. Shifu says, don't simply say anything you want. It has to be based on the text, the Dharma. That's one thing to keep in mind. And then reflecting and pondering on what the sutra is saying. What has this got to do with me? Does it apply to anything in my life? What benefit does this can I get from this? Or does this remind me of someone else? Questions like that. You investigate and you ponder. Okay, and then now your question, what happens if you make a mistake? Well, there's something called intention. Okay, there's a very small detail called intention, which is actually a huge detail. Why? Because all cause and effect comes from intention. You may do something wrong, but if your intention is not there, you don't create the karma. All right, very, very important. For example, when I came back to Malaysia, I wanted to drink tea, and I found this double glass wall tea I don't know what, teacup, something like teacup. On it was inscribed the Heart Sutra. All right, so I wanted to use that to make my tea because it has a metal filter that you can put on top so the tea leaves don't come out. And when someone saw me using that, the person became terrified. He said, "Oh, you want to use that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "But it has the Heart Sutra on it." I said, "Okay, but so what's wrong if it has a Heart Sutra? Isn't that a good thing?" And the person said, What will happen if you break it? Then you get bad karma. So that comes from a lack of understanding of cause and effect of karma. Buddha says, for it to qualify as karma, you need intention. So if you have taken the 5 precepts, and you would know this, if you accidentally take something without realizing that it wasn't yours, you don't have the intention to steal, then you don't create the karma of stealing. It is only when in your heart you know you are taking it, it doesn't belong to you, but you want it anyway, and it belongs to someone else, then that's considered as stealing. So if you explain the sutras wrongly, but it's not your intention is actually to benefit people, then you don't have to worry. Okay, but of course you don't want to use that as an excuse not to understand the Dharma. Or as long as I have good intention is good enough. No, then your intention becomes wrong as well. Why? Because you're giving yourself the excuse to act carelessly. All right? Okay. Now, Shifu says this is even a more severe statement. It implies that if you rely on the sutra text to explain its meanings, then you become the mortal enemy of the Buddhas of the 3 periods of time. All right? Well, what should we do? Shifu says you should understand that people who mouth those aphorisms are usually those who are ignorant and lack wisdom. They do not understand the Buddha's intent or the state of the Buddha's wisdom. Could it be the case that the Buddha spoke the sutras just so that people could commit limitless offenses by lecturing them? That is totally irrational. Saying that you aren't supposed to lecture sutras for fear that you'll make a mistake is taking much too harsh a view of things. Why? Because it's counterproductive. It's like, I remember last time my father's friends, when my mom became a vegetarian, and they would say very stupid things like, oh, if everyone in the world become vegetarians, then a lot of people will be out of jobs. So many industries will close down. They say things that on the at a very superficial level might have some logic, but if you just think about it for even a second, is very stupid logic. It's like maybe the logic of a 12-year-old. Yeah. And Shifu says, why did the Buddha speak the sutras in the first place? Is it really the case that they did it in order to increase the offenses of living beings? Of course not. One who maintains that living beings commit offenses just by lecturing the sutras is 80,000 miles away from the Buddha's original intent. It is a completely ridiculous theory. Okay, you hear that, Saha? Says now the Dhyana school or the Chan school. This Dhyana or Chan school means they specialize in meditation. Says now the Chan school does not put much emphasis on speaking or writing. When someone from that school says do not rely on the text to explain the meaning, he is speaking in a particular context in order to break people's attachment. So Shufu is given the context behind that saying. All right. Shufu says, for instance, there was once an extremely arrogant Dharma master who came to a Chan hall. Chan hall means meditation hall. He was putting on airs and felt that investigating Chan had no meaning whatsoever. So he was, you could say he was more like a scholar looking down on people who practice meditation, which happens at present time. There are people who get really arrogant because they understand the sutras and say, oh, you don't need to sit in meditation. Shows that their understanding of the sutras is almost zero. Actually, it's negative to say something like that. So this monk said, all of you sleepy ghosts are just sitting on your Chan benches like living dead people doing nothing. What benefit is there in this? And it says, when the old Chan master heard this, he roared, if you rely on the sutra to explain the meaning, you have wronged the Buddhas of the 3 periods of time. So Shufu says those words scared the haughty Dharma master out of his wits. He was so shocked that he didn't dare say another word. He stood there petrified, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. So the Chan master was saying this to break the attachments or the wrong thinking of the arrogant Dharma master. Finally, feeling as if the wind had been taken out of his sails, he left the place. From the above public record, you can see that this aphorism was spoken under a special set of causes and conditions. Okay, it was a specific teaching meant for that person. It's not something to be taken and applied in general. It shouldn't be interpreted to mean that whatever the Buddha spoke is the law, and that if you interpreted it in any way short of 100% correct, you would commit an unpardonable offense. Now, of course, if you can truly understand, then there is nothing, absolutely nothing. And Shufu goes on to say, sweep away all dharmas, separate from all marks. Shufu says, but before you have reached that level of understanding, you still have to cultivate and study according to the sutras. And if you have to cultivate and study according to the sutras, you need to understand their meanings. If you are lecturing on the sutras and you don't explain the meanings of the text, what do you explain? So Shufu's logic is very sound. And Shufu says, just now in the sutra text it said, perhaps it is called nothing to be cultivated. If you insist that this means don't cultivate because the sutra says there is nothing to be cultivated, then you have made a mistake. That means you take the sutra literally instead of the figuratively. On the other hand, if you insist that it means you've got to cultivate, then you also add, how you pronounce that? Either proposition is going to an extreme. You should abide by the middle way. Okay, here Shufu says the middle way, which is Melinda's question. Shufu says there's another saying that goes, relying on the sutras to explain the meaning, one wrongs the Buddhas of the 3 periods of time, separate from the sutras by just a single word, and that's the same as the demons talking. You know who should usually talk like that? People who don't lecture on the sutras. People who don't teach, or people who don't understand, and they feel self-conscious. These are the things that people like that say. Shufu says, here it says that if you depart from the sutras by just a single word, it's as if the demon king was speaking. How can we reach a place where we are not wronging the Buddhas and yet not speaking for the demon king? At the moment when you have completely cut off your love and desire, that no matter what you say, it will be correct. Okay, if you want to know when your speaking if you want to speak the Dharma, and you will be finally correct in everything you say, Shifu says you completely cut off your love and desire. In other words, when you become a sage, all right, become a Buddha or an Arhat, someone who's ended birth and death, or you become a Bodhisattva. Okay, you can wait until then you speak. But if you, it's kind of like a, what do you call it, catch-22. It's catch-22, right? If you don't speak and you don't develop your wisdom, you never get there anyway. So, Shifu says, conversely, before you cut off your desire, whatever you say is always incorrect. To put it in a nutshell, those who have sexual desire are ordinary people. Those who cut off their sexual desire are sages. The purpose of cultivating the way is to cut off love and desire. Then you can leave the three realms. All right? Okay. Any questions so far?
Master, I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding just like Sifu said, no Dharma is wrong or right, but in the lay Bodhisattva precepts, there's one minor precept saying that if we speak any Dharma without the Sangha's permission, it is a commits an offense through negligence. So how to abide the middle way in this way?
Okay, I'm not sure but if from my memory is correct, if you say you speak the Dharma on behalf of DRBA, you claim to be a Dharma speaker and you want to speak on behalf of DRBA, then without permission from the monastics of DRBA, then it's kind of not, and in an official level, at the official level, that's not quite correct. I think it's more on those circumstances. But I have to investigate that that particular precept and understand it better to give you a better answer. Okay, because like DRBA, we have a lot of Dharma speakers who are not monastics. For example, Doug Powers, who is when it comes to say speaking on Yogacara and the what's that term, the like Buddha lens, like the Samdhimochana Sutra, for example. Doug Powers is excellent in explaining that. And then we have Marty Verhoeven, who used to be a monk, and he lectures. I'm not sure what he's lecturing right now. Is it the Six Petrak Sutra? And he's extremely articulate. He can, and a lot of young people, college students, young adults, they like to listen to Marty because he's a very good speaker. He's like a naturally gifted Dharma speaker. So we have lay people who speak the Dharma as well. And like Shifu said, Shifu always wants lay people to speak. So sometimes the precepts can be, the precepts are more cautionary against people who act too rashly, I would say that. Yeah, for people who think too much of themselves and think they're very great. I think it's more for situations like that. Yeah. Okay, where arrogance overtakes the humbleness and intention to benefit people. Okay, or also maybe ability. There are some people who very much have the intention to speak the Dharma, but sometimes their intention far outweighs their actual understanding of the Dharma. That could be the case as well for people like that. So having someone give you permission is to it's like the principle is kind of like Shufu says, like, okay, when I have some slides that talks about speaking Dharma sometimes is not speaking the Dharma, or everything speaks the Dharma. And Shufu says when you enter the fourth dhyana, when you can meditate until you enter the fourth dhyana, that's what you realize. Everything is speaking the Dharma. And then Shifu says, but you can't simply qualify yourself to say that, oh, I've entered that state. You need someone who has more wisdom, more experience to certify you, you know. So we have those kinds of principle in the Dharma. So it could be a combination of any one of those, anyone that makes sense, I guess. All right. Okay. Now there is a suit. Yes, Alec.
Which precepts are those? Is that the Brahmanet Sutra precepts
I think
or
it's
the
I think Melinda is referring to the lay precepts, not the one with the how many 6 or 8 major precepts, and I can't remember 28 minor. How many, Melinda?
Okay.
The
Is
version that you have?
you're talking the minor precept, is it?
The version, because there are 2 Bodhisattva precepts for lay people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there are 2 different sets. The one that you took at CDTB was the one with was it the 8 major and 28 minor or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the one, Alec. How about you, Alec? Which version of the Bodhisattva precepts do you have?
I have the 10 major and 48 minor.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah, Brahmanet.
Okay, yeah, that's what DRBA used to transmit to lay people as well. Until it was, I think the feedback was for lay people it was a bit too difficult, so then they transmitted the different set.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Pastor.
Now we have this sutta called the Vacha Sutta, which is helpful when we want to speak the Dharma. So here the Buddha tells a monk, says, a statement endowed with 5 factors is well spoken, not ill spoken. It is blameless and unfaulted by knowledgeable people. Okay, so what are the 5 factors? It is spoken at the right time. It is spoken in truth. It is spoken affectionately. That means you you want the other person's well-being. Your intention is for the other person's well-being, their happiness. It is spoken beneficially. It is spoken with a mind of goodwill. A statement endowed with these 5 factors is well-spoken, not ill-spoken. It is blameless and unfaulted by knowledgeable people. So even if it's the Dharma that you are speaking, if it's the principle is very sound, that you know. Oh, okay. So the precepts is the 6 major and 28 minor. Thank you. Not the 8 major, 6 major. Okay. So when we say anything to people, okay, you have to make sure if your intentions are good, that it includes, you have to how you say, to recognize whether it's the right time or not. Because if it's not the right time, then even if you have the right thing to say, it may not be taken well. You know, when people are undergoing grief, for example, something terrible had just happened to them, you cannot, that's usually not the right time for words of wisdom, because it may backfire, or because the person is not in the right state of mind, you know. And you can never lie, okay, so always speak in truth. You must speak it in a way that's pleasing. You don't scold people. You know it's for their benefit, and you know it's for their happiness and the mind of goodwill. Okay, now it is time to end. And apart from Melinda's question, anyone else has any questions? Oh yeah, okay. Now I remember what. Saha, I was going to ask you if you had you shared something about reconnecting with your mom.
Yes, Dharma Master. I just wanted to share my experience of reconnecting with my family, and my mother is just, I don't know how to explain, but like all my life I've just never felt I'm part of this family the way that they treated me. But then I realized I have to take responsibility for my actions, whether from past life or I don't know. So I reconnected with my mother just recently again, and as a result, I feel a lot better. And I feel I have a duty to her to take care of her, especially that she's really old right now. And my son is also very, very happy as a result. Yeah, it's just, I feel it's a duty. And and based on the teachings of the Dharma, I've been following that. And I'm sorry, I can't really explain my feelings. I'm really bad at that, but that's how I feel.
Okay, so, but you are happy.
Yes, I'm very happy, and I realize I will never disconnect speaking with my mother again, just because of what had happened in the past, or because I take responsibility for my own actions.
And how has this benefited your son?
He learned a lot as far as taking care of elders. Filial piety is very, very important, and he's also very happy that having family around him is very important, especially grandparents.
I was very surprised when Alex called me. Alex is your son, right? When he called me, was it 2 days ago? He said he was very, very happy to spend time with his grandmother.
Yes, Dharma Master, he's actually with her right now. He's spending a lot of time at her house, helping her, spending time with her, also learning things from her own experience. And he's really enjoying it, very, very much enjoying it.
One of the things I told him was that he could ask his grandmother about stories about how when she grew up, what she went through, her life.
Yeah, he's having a good time with her, and he's gonna spend more time with her.
Okay. All right. Now I'm glad that that happened. Now any more questions for anyone? Or anyone wants the answer to Melinda's question as well about the middle path, middle way? If not, then if I can address it next week. For now, we can dedicate merit, and I believe this week we will do our traditional dedication of merit, right? Okay, we do have a question. Randy's question is, what is the goal for monastic to achieve enlightenment? How to walk this path? Randy, I think you answered your own question, because you said, what is the goal for monastic to achieve enlightenment? I think enlightenment is the goal. And how to walk this path, the Noble Eightfold Path, which is also the same answer for Melinda's question. What is the middle way? The middle way is a Noble Eightfold Path. It is the end. The Noble Eightfold Path is the way to end birth and death. And the first of the Noble Eightfold Path is, I think, first two is right view and right understanding, which is why I'm spending a bit of time on trying to understand the sutras and what we can get from the sutras and from Shifu. Did I answer your question, Randy? Okay, all right. Randy is on silent mode today, only chat typing. Okay, I'm going to put my palms together. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light Dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone, Amrita 4, and we'll see you next week.